薄いのアホ。
プリズムパワーメイクアップカードレディー。
Welcome to Shojo Tell, where we discuss shoujo manga and tell who's hot and who's not, talk about themes, and just generally geek out. Today, April 20th, 2019, we'll be shoujo and telling about the series Phantom Thief Jeanne by Arina Tanemura. I laugh when I say Jeanne. I'm a mess. I'm your host, Ashley McDonald, and I'm joined by Asher Sofman. Say hi, Asher Sofman.
Hi, I am Asher Sofman.
Whoa, what's up? And Laura Spicer.
Hi, I'm Laura.
Yay! Now we all know what each other's voices sounds like.
Yay!
Shooby-doo-bop! Yo, I'm gonna say that a million times because that was my favorite panel.
Oh yeah, that happened.
That happened, and it was the best.
Full disclosure for me, that did not happen for me because I own the CMX version. So,
Oh, wow, we have so much to talk about. Okay. Wow. All right. So, first of all, this beginner section is going to be spoiler free. We're just going to talk about really basic things like what is this manga about and who publishes it and and favorite things from it overall. We won't tell you ending things. So, if you haven't read Phantom Thief, you can follow along. You can decide if you want to read Phantom Thief. I will give a blatant spoiler warning before we ruin all the things, because there are many twists. Things happen. Okay. But Laura, all right, just tell us generally what is a Phantom Thief? What does Joan of Arc have to do with any of this?
okay, so the manga is about Kusakabe Maron, who is a 16-year-old living in the end of the 20th century, and they do explicitly say that. So it's been about 500 years since Joan of Arc was alive, and her spirit was reincarnated into Maron, and she transforms, thanks to the powers of an angel named Fin Fish, into Phantom Thief Jeanne. And her duty is to be sort of an agent of God, and she goes into art museums or people's homes, and she has to seal demons who are lurking in beautiful pieces of artwork. And if she doesn't do this, then basically the devil will consume everyone's hearts, and probably by Y2K, or whatever, everyone will be dead. And that'll be the end of the world.
It's so baffling because I feel like those still were just a bunch of nonsense words thrown together, and I don't know, my only explanation is Arina Tanemura. She does things and somehow they connect, they make a story. I don't know.
I did my best, but there's a lot to unpack.
There's so much to unpack. Also, it is really hard to give a plot synopsis without spoilers.
It is.
There's also a boy, Chiaki. He's Sinbad. I don't know.
He's Phantom Thief Sinbad.
He is Phantom Thief Sinbad.
He is also, sealing the demons in these paintings.
And he, according to Finn, he is the devil's advocate along with his angel, Access Time.
Access Time.
These names.
They're sure names. They're not even
Are
names. They are words thrown together.
Well, that one, time axis, that's actually a thing.
Sure. So, I must admit that I had never read Phantom Thief before this podcast, and I finished reading it 2 hours ago, so hey, what's up? All right. Asher, what you had read this before, yes?
I had. If there was a buzzing on the recording just 2 minutes ago, that was me asking my brother, hey, did I read this before or after your bar mitzvah? And he was like, I don't know. So he's useless. I read it sometime in high school, apparently, for the first time. It was my first Tanemura manga. I think after that I went to Full Moon. And then I didn't touch it again until just now.
Yeah, okay. And Laura, you also had read this before, and what was the gap between reading it again now and the first time?
Oh boy. So, to give a little backstory, my first Arina Tanemura series was actually Full Moon, And this was back when it was actually still being published in Reborn magazine. So on my crummy AOL and on my family's desktop computer, when we were all still sharing it, I would go on to Reborn's website, and naughty Laura would read scanlations, because this was before any of Arina's works were released in the US. So that was my gateway into her work. And then I read Jeanne after Full Moon had ended. So I was around 12 or 13 when I first read it. And then I've yeah. So I've reread it in high school, and then the last time I reread it before this podcast was 2011. So it's been a long time for me.
Hang on, personal question. How old are you?
I'm 27.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, that's fine. We're all relatively the same age.
Right, yeah.
So baby Laura was reading something. Now that I'm an adult, I'm like, oof, I probably should not have been reading it when I was.
Yeah, I'm like,
But here's the thing. The magazine that Jeanne and all of Arina's manga was published in at the time was aimed at 8-year-olds to 14-year-olds. So
yeah, I am so like I don't want to touch that. Oof.
So technically I was in the audience demographic for this.
yeah, technically. Oh boy. So reading it now, okay, I know that Asher was like, actually it was at least slightly better than he remembered, but Laura, how did reading it this time change your perspective on it?
Okay, so without going into spoilers, there are things I noticed about Maron that reflects people who struggle with anxiety and depression. So I was like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense in terms of her character actions. And then there are other things that we'll go into later, because I don't want to spoil them now, where I'm just like, this has aged terribly.
Yeah.
I hate this.
Yeah.
I am very angry. And I had to sit on those feelings until we started recording. So I was just like sitting in a stew of rage.
Yes.
Oh, please open with your rage as soon as we can.
Asher is like, I'm so excited to rage.
Let's do it.
Tonight we
I'm
rage
so glad.
about Jeanne.
Oh, on a side note, I've also watched, as a 12-year-old pirate, I've also watched the anime. So I can compare and contrast elements that are very different and somewhat similar between the two.
Okay,
Excellent.
good. Because I didn't.
Yeah, I think
It's okay.
the reason I asked my brother if I saw it before or after his bar mitzvah was because his bar mitzvah was in Israel, and while I was watching Israeli TV, an episode of Jeanne came on, and I was like, oh. And I don't remember if I recognized it then or if I recognized it after. So, like, I've technically seen part of an episode in a language I did not at the time understand.
That's very interesting.
Excellent. I watched the opening and the transformation sequence. That's what I've seen of the animus. Okay. I didn't know. Okay, so CMX published all of it. I wasn't sure that they got all the way through it because, CMX, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Yes, they did. They published all 7 volumes. So that's the set that I own. And as soon as when Full Moon first started coming out, 14-year-old me was like, heck yes, I am buying this. I am going to buy every single piece of Arina Tanemura's work that ever comes to the United States. And then Jeanne was announced, and I was like, I am spending all of the money.
All of the money. All right. Yeah, I guess I've only known Tanemura in the era of, like, Viz getting all of her stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I'm very confused. John's publishing history confuses me. Like, researching for this podcast, I was like, wait, did Viz publish all of it? The answer is yes. But, okay, so the confusion comes from, you look up on Wikipedia and it's like, Jeanne is 7 volumes. And I'm like, cool, why does Viz only have 5? And then it's like, Jeanne was re-released in Japan as 6 volumes. And I'm like, okay, but Viz still only has 5. And I'm so confused why. But it's all of it, so you can go get it there. And I bought it all digitally. So it's really 7 disguised as 5. I bought it for like $30. That's pretty good. I do have to admit that Viz's version, like, the editing was not super great, I feel. There were lots of missing words at points and, like, misspellings. And normally Viz is more on point than this, so I was a little sad. But that's fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't notice.
You didn't notice? Oh, okay.
Well, I was reading pretty fast.
So fast, so pure. I'm an editor, so I was like...
Right. I'm just a library assistant.
You're just a library.
Well, I can already give you a point of comparison between CMX and the Viz version. So the CMX version, the editing was worse.
It was worse.
So when you're trying to translate manga, I know that book publishers go in with Photoshop and they try to use the cloning tool or whatever to go over the Japanese text, and so that the translation looks clean and it reads well on the page. Well, CMX would take big white splotches and just paint over the text in the earlier volumes and not clean it up well.
No.
So you would just get these white splotches where screen tone should be, and you're just like, wow, this is garbage.
Wow.
And even as a 14-year-old, I understood that.
Wow.
Oh no.
I think I must have read CMX's version first. Cuz when did Viz start re-releasing stuff, Ashley? It was after high school, right?
They definitely had Full Moon in high school, like when we were in high school.
Okay, I don't know then.
I looked up on Viz's website. It looks like the first Viz volume was 2014.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I actually do assume that John came out later because it was a rescue license.
Yep.
Oh, 2014. That was after college.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, then I read CMX first. That explains a lot.
Explains a lot. Apparently, CMX didn't use the glorious Shooby Doobop, so get out
No,
of
they
here.
did not.
Get out of here. It's worthless. It's the best translation. I love it. It gives me great joy. Also, I realized that I didn't ask Laura what she does, but you do art things, and this is why you know art things, right?
Yeah, so I am an illustrator and graphic designer, and I was freelancing for a while, so I would do projects that clients would be like, oh, can you draw this for me? And I would be like, cool, yeah, okay. So that's basically where I stand.
Did Tanemura influence you in any way?
Yes. So when I was in high school, when I was 15, 16 was really when I was super into her. I would go on to online forums and talk about her stuff, and she actually influenced me to start creating my own original characters.
Yay!
So I don't have any of the artwork from when I was 15 though, because I hated it, and it
You're
looked
like, I burned that as soon as possible.
because it looked way too much like Arina's stuff and not like my own, and so I was just like, this is complete garbage.
Burn it all to the ground.
So she in a way did have an influence on me, but that's all I have to say about that.
Listen, Tanemura is great at character designs. She has put so much detail into the hair. She's got them big shoujo eyes. Like, I get it. That's fine. It's the storytelling of Tanemura that sometimes I'm like, Tanemura, like, why? Why?
Oof, yeah. And Full Moon will always be my favorite of hers, but
Oh boy.
That's not a high bar to clear.
Oh man.
Ooh. Some digs right here from the one who actually really loves this manga.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I do have to say that we're doing Jeanne first because I did run a poll a while ago that got like 40 votes, and y'all picked this one as the one that we should do first. It did only narrowly beat out Full Moon. unsurprisingly, those were the two that were top because they both have anime. And I see you, mainstream people. I see you. It's fine.
I think also it's just like straight up, like those were the ones that were available in the beginning.
No, I thought Gentleman's Alliance would have a strong one, but that was the least voted for one. But I thought...
There's a reason for that.
Okay.
And if you think Jeanne is not so great,
Oh,
Gentleman's Alliance is one of her worst.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
So.
Excellent. Okay, let's say some nice things about
Sure, yeah. That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have a favorite aspect or a favorite character? Like, what are the reasons that people should read John? I'll go first. So, my favorite character is definitely Access Time. He is the best boy in this manga. He is if this manga is about purity in any way, which it is, and we're going to get there, he is the purest boy. He's the purest girl. He's the purest human. He's not even human. He's an angel. But he's a good boy. He never does anything creepy to anybody.
Wow.
Well, okay, maybe like a little bit. He has some
There's a few
possessive qualities that are not great.
Right. Comparatively, he
Comparatively.
is still much better.
He is definitely the best. Also, like, you know, not tiny fairy access. Like, I'm like, he's pretty hot. That's fine.
I thought that would come in at some point.
He's hot. What can I can't help it. He's got awesome hair. What? I think there are some very, very good. Okay. So the thing about Tanemura is that Tanemura is very whiplashy and has no build up to anything. It's just kind of like, why spend time leading up to this moment when you could just get to the moment, like the highest high and the lowest low, and just nothing in between? And I'm like, okay. So there are some very good moments in this that I'm like, wow, that was actually really like thoughtful, and I was sort of moved, or like it was cute, and I appreciated that. And it's always surrounded by garbage normally. Don't get me wrong, but like some of those moments,
Ashley,
I appreciate that.
We're supposed to be saying nice things.
I am saying nice things.
But that is a nice thing.
That's a nice.
Garbage is not a nice word.
Excuse me. I think that the message that it came across in the end was like pretty great, actually. Like, that's fine. It actually was a very Asher message.
That's true.
Again, just surrounded by things that otherwise are like, why? Why is this happening?
Okay. Do you want me to go now?
I do want you to go now.
All right. So my favorite character is, it goes back and forth a little bit between Maron and Miyako, actually. I find that Maron is really, I think we'll get into this a little, but I find Maron to be a pretty refreshing female lead in shoujo. Like, her insecurities aren't her main core. That's not what we're introduced with her. Like, she goes and gets what she wants. And I'm like, yes, more of that. And then Miyako similarly is not like made of hesitance. And also her dedication to her friend is like spot on great. Probably my favorite relationship in the whole series.
That's true. That's a very high point. I do appreciate Miyako and Maron's friendship.
Yeah. So I guess that is one of my favorite aspects of the series. Maron's sort of how she navigates all these like terrible things and still manages, like, even when she does hit those lowest lows and feels real crappy about herself and these things that other people have done to her through no fault of her own, she finds a way to still be the strong and confident persona that she puts on. She can be that and also still be vulnerable, is one of her developing arc things.
Character arc things that happen.
Yeah, those things. You know, her Jeanne d'Arc things.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else? I do think the manga has a lot of neat things to say about purity that maybe
are not supported
take some picking apart. Yeah, they're not always supported by what actually happens.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they are not actually the norm that I find in any Japanese material about purity culture or even Western stuff. Like, Ashley knows I have very strong negative feelings about purity culture.
And Asher knows that I am trapped in purity culture's nonsense and trying to wade my way out of it.
Oh, you are trying to get out of it?
It's bad.
That's why a manga like this, I think, is in this way good, because there are a lot of toxic things about purity culture, and this kind of gives you a shining beacon of hope in a way.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Also, I don't know that this came up explicitly, but like the art is gorgeous. If you want to look at pretty things, like read this manga.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Read any Tanemura manga, to be honest. But yes, Laura, what do you love?
Okay, so I'm in agreement with Asher on this one. My favorite characters are Maron and Miyako, and their relationship explicitly, and especially now as an adult. Their relationship is one of my favorite parts about Jeanne. And as someone who struggles with anxiety and depression, especially now that I'm older and I understand what it is and what I was going through as a kid, Maron's behavior makes a lot of sense to me, and I understand what she's going through with all of the issues that she reaches during her highest highs and her lowest lows. I'm like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, because when you're struggling with mental illness, you're going to have days where you're like, I can do anything. It's going to be okay. I'm strong. I'm courageous. I can do this. And then you're going to have days where you're just like, I can't do this. I hate myself. I'm a terrible human being. And it's extremely relatable. And I think shoujo needs to have more protagonists like her, because I think sometimes there's a rose-colored tinted image with shoujo manga, and Maron kind of sets herself apart by being very realistic. And same with Miyako. I mean, a friend like her, I would love to have a friend like Miyako, because she's headstrong. She chases Kaito-Jan even though she's 16 years old, and she's just like, Dad, just let me do this, okay? I want to be a detective. I want to live my dreams, and I also want to chase this phantom thief down because I have my own agendas. Okay, Dad? Okay?
It's cool.
And there are things that happen in the manga, but also in the anime, especially, that really sealed the deal on me, and it's definitely one of my favorite relationships.
I do agree with this, but I'm a shallow person, so Access time.
Fair enough.
No, Access is still good too. Don't get me wrong.
Exactly. All right, so we've said the positive things. We have given the overlay of what Jeanne is. It is very hard to discuss without spoilers, so now we're going to spoil things. So if you haven't read Jeanne, you should go do that, should you want to read about the reincarnation of Joan of Arc, who steals paintings and has little fairy people who are angels that chase her around, all right? So first we're going to open, we did get some comments on Twitter, so we'll go through those. You know, always a good, gentle starting off point, give the people what they want. So, @CutestPigeon on Twitter said, how do you feel about the quality of the anime? Do you like the OP? Because it's kind of bad. And also, what do you think makes Jeanne stand out as a magical girl? All right, it's a lot to unpack here. Okay, so since I have not watched the anime, I'm first going to comment on this OP, which I actually watched it forgetting that I had read this comment. And then I was like, oh yeah, that opening was bad. Again, independent of this comment. And then I read this again and I was like, oh yes, I agree. Just because it was like everything is held like a second or 2 or 5 too long in that OP. It's just like Jeanne and Chiaki staring at each other for 30 seconds. And I'm like, I don't need this. And then the only other thing I watched was Jeanne's transformation sequence, which actually was pretty cool and elaborate. I was like, that is way more attention to that than Tanemura ever gave it. So, I'm down. Cool. And it was sent to me from a friend who was like, I sent this to some people who were looking for like coolest magical girl transformations or something. And I was like, that's legit. Okay, so Laura, as the only one who has watched the anime on this.
So when I first saw that comment on Twitter, I was like, but which opening are you talking about? Because there's two,
There are two
actually.
openings. I only watched the first one, I think.
So when I was a kid growing up, I think musically I liked the first one better than the second, because the second one had all of these sound effects and they were kind of distracting. Still feel the same way. I think the part at the end where Chiaki and Maron were staring at each other for an extra 10 seconds was,
yeah,
bad.
That's a thing.
But what I like about the first opening is that it's named Piece of Love, which was the second chapter title in the manga. So they called back to that, and they called back to a bunch of Arina's artwork for the series. So that was cool. Like, there's this one shot where Jeanne is moving up, and there's a split panel in the middle, and some of the secondary characters like Miyako and Minazuki and Chiaki appear, and Maron's like going down, and their hair's kind of waving. So I was like, I still like that. But the second OP is kind of
Still
still And then the ending themes, I still think the second one is my favorite because they call back to Zen's mini arc. So that I've always liked that one. And then in terms of the anime in general, the quality of it, the animation's not good, but that is because it is a shoujo series, and shoujo tends to get they tend to get kicked in the pants when it comes to quality for their anime. And it was animated by Toei.
Oh, that's the real.
Who I'm sure after finishing Sailor Moon, they were like, what can we do next? And then they saw Jeanne and they were like, I wonder if we can turn this into our next Sailor Moon.
Well.
And Arina actually made it a point to say she wanted to make her art so detailed that it would be hard to animate, but then Jeanne and Full Moon happened, and you're just and I'm sure she was just kind of like, oh, okay. But she said one of her favorite things about the anime was Miyako's dad and his subordinates, because Miyako's dad looks very different in the anime compared to the manga. I don't know if you guys...
Wait. Is he like a real human person?
Yes, he is. Hold on. I'm gonna pull up a picture for you guys, because I love Miyako's dad in the anime.
Is he
hot? He's very good looking. What?
Oh, I'm excited.
I have to pull up a picture now, because he's also an actual character too. And one thing that I love about the anime is it fleshes out the characters a bit better. So things like Miyako's dad and the police agency, they do that way better. And I'll say it right now before we talk about it, but Chiaki is 1,000 times better than the manga version of the anime.
What? This is so enticing. And we should clarify that the anime is 44 episodes, which is definitely a lot for a 7-volume manga. So
right. Well, it's like Card Captors. You do actually have more time to flesh out everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think in this case, the filler was warranted, and it worked in its favor.
Wow.
And then in other cases, some of the filler episodes were just bad.
Of course. Well, you can't win them all.
The nature of filler.
I will also say this. There are some things about the anime that I was disappointed in, like later in the manga, Jeanne gets a sword. In the anime, she has her ribbon in that form. And
lame.
Yeah, so they obviously were toning it down a lot, and they were like, what can we sell as merchandise? And they forgot about the ribbon in the first form, so they were like, oh yeah, she has that ribbon. Why don't we sell that?
Boo.
No, boo. Give girls swords.
Utena, make it happen.
Swords.
So I posted Miyako's dad in the anime.
Oh, he's a real man.
Ashley has a new favorite character.
New favorite character. Miyako's
And
dad.
I love Miyako's family in the anime. They're great, and also the police detectives are also great. And Arina loved them so much that she drew them on one of the covers in the manga. So those guys on chapter 27, those are from the anime.
Oh.
We missed out, guys.
Oh, man. Now I'm intrigued. How dare you do this to me?
And the voice acting is really good too. So while the animation is lacking and there are things from the manga I wish were in the anime, overall I actually like the anime a bit better than the manga.
Okay.
What are some things that didn't make it into the anime?
So some of the things were Finn and Axis's backstory. They never adapt that.
Whoa.
Okay,
Wow.
that's like
That's
key.
pretty big.
So the themes of sex and purity, that never gets in either because they toned down all of that. And as I can't really call this a consequence because I think it's a plus in my opinion, Chiaki is less of a scummy scumbag.
Yes, good.
Chiaki is less possessive rapiness? Yes, okay.
Yeah, so that's not in there. He makes like perverted jabs, and I'm just like, ugh, I hate this, but I'd rather take that over Chiaki in the manga.
Yeah.
Chiaki being like, no, you're mine. Let me just pin you to the ground. I'm like, chill out, Chiaki. What are you doing?
And anytime he does that, I just want to jump into the manga and kick him and take Maron. And
It's
run
not
away.
just him. Every single
Yeah.
male character in this series, except for Miyako's dad, I guess, who, in order to express their male affection for someone, does it in a really aggressive and physically intrusive way. And it's like, stop. And it's never like portrayed as out of the ordinary or even negative.
Nope. And that's a very common theme with Arina Tanemura. A lot of her male characters are like this, and I hate it. I hate it a lot. There are maybe 3 that are good. But again, that is a very low bar to clear. And Axis, I think, is at the highest point of Jeanne, but like in her other works, Takuto is decent. Magari is decent as well. I think also that's because he's not hetero.
Clear it up and then it's all
There
fine.
it is. There it is.
And Nachi from Full Moon is also decent, but like that's not good if 4 of your characters are
Yeah.
decent. It's not good.
Also, I mean,
Yeah.
to be clear, Takuta is interested in a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah, so there's also a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Oh,
no.
God.
Well, I mean, the worst
Yeah.
point in this manga for me was definitely that, like, Noin, who is, what is Noin? He's just a demon boy. He's a bad person. Oh, he's the one who loves John in
Yeah.
500 years ago or whatever, and comes back and is like, no, we're meant to be together forever. So he's like, Maron, I loved you all this time. And she's like, I don't know who you are at all. And he's like, it's fine, I've loved you forever. And she's like, please no. And he's like, I'm gonna, like, you know, rape you, basically. And he's like, he gets pretty far with that before that's interrupted. And then later, Maron's like, oh, it's fine, I forgive you. You weren't really gonna rape me anyway, because if you wanted to do that, you would have just done it while I was asleep. And I'm like, no.
Oh, God.
No.
And I think this, for me, now that I'm reading it and I brought up Marin's anxiety and depression, it ties back into the fact she's never had a positive relationship directly besides Miyako and her family in her
Right.
entire life. So
I know. So I'm like, oh no, she doesn't know to like not forgive the boys, right? Like she doesn't understand.
I can proudly say that is not in the anime either. So
Oh, thank God. That would have raised some fire.
So the anime version's very clean in that aspect, and thank God for it, because
Yeah.
it makes me tired. It makes me so tired.
Right. Yeah.
So tired. Okay. So we should get to the second part of this comment, which is not about the anime. It is just, what do you think makes Jeanne stand out as a magical girl?
Okay, so in terms of both the anime and manga, for her first transformation sequence, it's actually, while it's reused animation, there isn't a magical background going on. She actually transforms in real time, and I always thought that was really interesting. And it's really only a 20-second transformation compared to some other magical girl transformations, so I always thought that was interesting. And Jeanne is a thief, so I'm sure now that Persona 5 is very big right now, a lot of people will dig that. They'll dig a magical girl thief who steals artwork. And big difference between the manga and the anime is in the anime, once it's stolen, it's gone. But in the manga, there are angels that are left behind. So most of the time, the people who gets their artwork stolen, they don't press charges because they're just like, oh, but look at this beautiful angel that was left behind. We don't have to press charges anymore. So that part was interesting. And also the fact that, again, Maron is a character who struggles with mental illness makes her stand out and more relatable.
I think the things for me that stand out about Maron and Jeanne are less that, because I do see in other magical girls other signs of like deep insecurity and the belief that like, no, I really can't do this. Like, I mean, granted, most of my magical girls happened in the 90s, so nothing is made explicit about that, but a lot of the Sailor Senshi like struggle.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. What stands out to me about Maron is she never, whereas most of the other magical girls I see like really don't want to be doing this. They're like, no, I can't. I don't have the skills. I don't have the confidence. Like Usagi is, I love her, but she's a whiny crybaby.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And like is always scared of doing all these things. Like Maron just like, there was like one chapter early on where she's like, I don't want to. And then Finn was like, but don't you want this? And she's like, yes, I do. So I'm going to go do this. And it's like, that is very refreshing to me, is like seeing a female character be active. Like proactive in getting her goal. I don't really was it ever made like really clear what her wish was? Like, was it just like to have her parents come back?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's the closest thing we ever get to that, because Arina never fulfills that. So
right.
we don't quite know, but I think her biggest desire is to have her parents come back and to live with her and live a normal family, have a normal family.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of kids who have parents who fight or are abusive or are divorced, a lot of kids want that.
Sure, yeah.
So for me, part of it is that like Jeanne doesn't super feel like a magical girl to me most of the time. Like I understand that she transforms into this personality, but I think because it's eroded away so relatively quickly, like Sinbad comes and is like, and then you're like, oh, you're just Maron and Chiaki, you know, like, and then they're like, that line kind of gets blurred like so quickly, and everybody's like in on the ruse, and I don't know, they're doing this like weird stealing of paintings, and like, what's a phantom thief? Like, I don't know, it's just all sort of. I just think like,
the
whatever.
fact that they don't actually like take the paintings puts them firmly in magical people ground for me, because like they're throwing pins at it, they're throwing pins at it, and I'm just like, that weirdness, that is magical girl.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess we should talk about this framing story of Jeanne d'Arc, Adam and Eve. God does things.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oof.
Religion. Now is an appropriate time to talk about religion. It's
Let's
Passover
talk
and
about
Easter.
religion.
Let's talk about religion.
Oh boy.
It's
I hope
420
these
also.
It's 420. That's right. Oh,
Blaze it.
you guys, it's the holiest of days.
Oh, man.
Oh boy. I am the least qualified to talk about religion, though, so somebody please save me.
I can take point on this one.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I do think that the linking of Jeanne d'Arc, who is, holy maiden, virgin, purity, culture incarnate in almost every iteration we see of her, equated with Eve, who, is in, a lot of, I don't actually know how she's portrayed in Islam, so I can't speak to that. But in Judeo-Christian stuff, like in Christian stuff, she is the progenitor of original sin.
Woo!
Woo! And then, I mean, even in Judaism, it's like, yeah, this is Eve's fault. So, like, having that linked is fascinating to me. And, like, there is one panel where, like, we see some of Jeanne's other reincarnations, and there's one holding a child. So I'm like, is that her child? You never hear about, like, Jeanne d'Arc often has lovers in literature, but, like, it's all, no, she's so holy, you can't touch her. But then Eve is, like, the devil of sexuality incarnate,
Yeah.
So I think that actually is one of the stronger, no, purity culture is bad and stupid things that Arina does. Other than that, I think... I don't think Tanemura really respects any of the religions she invokes in this series.
Oh, definitely not.
No. Like, Jeanne incorporates elements of Shinto Miko garb, maybe some Buddhist. I like the way Japan is syncretic with religions and, like, mixing them all together and, like, upholding all of them doesn't work so well when you introduce Christianity into the mix, and it just feels, as a Western reader, very weird. And did you really think this through?
A little flippant, is that?
Yeah, I can talk about this from an art historical standpoint a little bit, because while I am Jewish and my dad's side is Irish Catholic, I'm not super religious myself. But I think from an art historical standpoint, the paintings that were coming out from that time period, in John's time period, you weren't allowed to accurately depict the human body because it would be, you're recreating God's image, and that was bad. So it was considered sin in that sense to create a realistic looking human being, which is why you have these, I guess you would consider them hilarious depictions of Jesus and the Virgin Mary, and why they kind of look like man babies, because they just look like you took an adult and you shrunk him down, and you're just like, yep, this is totally a baby, guys. What a baby looks
I didn't
like.
know that. That's really cool.
Yes. Yeah, so there are points in art history where it was considered beautiful to depict the human body, and they wanted to know more about it, and then Christianity would step in and be like, no, that's sin.
Oh,
You're
I mean,
bad.
to be fair, Judaism and Islam both do that as well. And, like, to this day, still a lot of more literal parts of that world still don't.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I didn't make that connection. That's really cool. And the fact then that Jeanne is stealing those paintings and replacing them with beautiful angels, like, ooh.
This actually clarifies a lot for me, because I was like, why do paintings? Why paintings?
Well, I mean, was Tanemura going for that? I don't know, but, like, that makes it very cool.
I don't know, but I hope so, because that's cool.
I probably not. I don't know how privy to art history she is, but I would like to think and hope that's what she was going for.
I like it because it makes the story make way more sense now. I'm like,
Right,
Tanemura,
right.
why elements? Why?
Yeah, yep.
And now I'm like, oh, maybe it's not all weird nonsense.
Also, like, why? No, just one more thing about the religion thing
Okay,
is
yes.
like,
Oh, sure.
why did she have to put that thing in about God having the hots for Eve? Like, why?
Yeah,
That
I
was
like,
not
I think
necessary.
we went too far now.
Not necessary.
Arina's Christianity fan fiction.
Yeah, right.
So not only do we have fan fiction about Jeanne d'Arc with Noin Claude, who wasn't even real, we also have fan fiction about God being in love with Eve. So.
And that's what she needed, a reason for there to be demons. So she's like, hey, what's up? God did a bad.
God did not need to do a bad with God's whatever.
Also, can we talk about how the reason women are emotionally stronger is because Eve ate the fruit, and the reason why boys are so physically strong is because of Adam's desire to protect Eve?
Stupid.
Oh, God.
Can we also talk about, like, in this framing tale, we have to accept that God has no heart and no feelings? Like, what is that saying about the nature of a supreme power? Does it have to be rational? I don't know. Anyway.
It also doesn't make any sense based on what we were given, because everything he does is being like, oh, Finn and Access, they're cute. Like, yeah,
right.
I'll bring them back. Like, what?
Right.
No. I don't buy this at all.
It's a very personally involved God for all that all he's supposed to be able to do is create souls, watch over them, and make the wind blow.
Yeah, nothing about this God made any sense, all right? Let's be clear.
Nope.
Like, just didn't align up with in-text at all.
And also the fact that when Finn accidentally killed all those people because of the release of her power, because her evil brother cut her hair, he was just like, yep, it's Finn's fault. She's banished now forever, even though it really wasn't her fault. It was just she couldn't control all that power. So what the heck was she supposed to do?
I feel like if that had been given more space and we actually did get to see more of God's side of that, it could have been like a really interesting story, because I almost feel that, and maybe this is me just projecting other stories from other things, but like sometimes people feel they need to be punished for things that weren't necessarily their fault. Yep. I know a lot. I read an article about like accidental vehicle manslaughter survivors, like not having any support because it's like, no, it's not your fault, but this person is still dead because of you. It's like, okay. Yeah. You know, so I don't know. I mean, banishing her to the gate of nothingness doesn't seem right, but maybe like she couldn't have survived otherwise. I don't know. There's a lot that could have been straightened out in the last 3 volumes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I 100% agree with you on all that.
But anyway, that's my fanfic take on Finfish.
I'm just like, well, is it supposed to be analogous then with the Eve story? But I don't know. It didn't really go there, and nothing makes sense. It's whatever.
Wait, ways we can rewrite Phantom Thief Jeanne. Yeah. Let's go.
So many ways.
Oh, please, I would.
Asher's like, it's that challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. First step, take out all the boys.
Take out all.
Same.
We can leave access for you.
Only leave access for me, thank you.
You're welcome.
Access is allowed. He's okay.
You can make him even better than he already is.
I can do that for you.
Okay. I think before we go into full-on purity politics, we should answer this last Twitter bit or address it. So at Pirate Ghost Hosts on Twitter said, Tanemura has a talent for writing characters that grow and change together in really beautiful ways as a response to, like, I asked them just generally, like, what's appealing about Arina Tanemura. Because Arina Tanemura is really big and influential in the shoujo manga space, even though I do not quite understand it.
Speaking from someone who grew up with Arina when she was in her teens, I get it. I get why they're saying that, but as an adult, I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
Nope.
I'm like, I don't feel this at like very much at all because again, it's just like Asher commented that he thought Tanemura didn't have a set like characteristics for Chiaki before starting out, and then she's just like, yeah, now he's just this over here, which is totally different than when he was in the first like volume or two. Which, to be fair, is not like that happens in other manga too, where you're like, oh, this character is just like different now. Like they took a different trajectory than what I guess the mangaka initially thought was going to happen, right? But I just feel like generally with Tanemura's storytelling, there's never build up. There's never this like sensical progression. It's always just kind of like, okay, lots of things have happened.
I do feel like the way Maron and Chiaki change around trust is actually pretty okay.
Pretty good.
Particularly in the first 3 volumes. After that, it kind of, I think, falls by the wayside because plot and Finn take over.
Yeah, Finn's like, I'm the star of the story now.
Right?
Yep.
I did like the ups and downs of that, and the fact that, like, you know, he did betray her trust and made some real poor choices about not talking to her about it that don't make sense to me.
Yeah, this is very typical, like, shoujo manga. We must have misunderstandings because we just, like, don't tell each other things truthfully. And I'm like, why, though? Like, just...
I mean, like, fair enough for 16-year-olds, but, like, not satisfying as an adult reader.
Yeah.
It's one of my least favorite shoujo manga tropes.
It's not just in shoujo.
True, but it's very prevalent, I think.
Yes, sure.
For drama. And then it's just like, well, you betrayed me. But in this case, I will say, with Maron, it makes sense for her to be so hurt by it because of her family issues.
Absolutely.
She has so much issue with trust in the first place that for her, I'm completely okay with how this progressed.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's Chiaki who doesn't make sense to me.
Chiaki is the nonsense boy over here.
Like, why would you not tell her that Finn is evil? Like, come on. Come on, boy.
There are many things about Chiaki that I'm just so angry with.
It's like he's a device for the plot to work through. Like, honestly, he's not that great.
He did. The one truly cute thing was him writing letters to her after she looks in her mailbox every day. I was like, all right, Chiaki, that's a solid.
That was cute.
One of the only nice things that he's ever done.
Yeah, no.
True facts.
The one truly nice thing you ever did, Chiaki. Well, yeah, what is generally Tanemura's like amazing appeal? Because to me, I'm like, I get it from an art standpoint. She is very good at drawing lace and hair and the big eyes. Like, really, I'm like, all right, I get it. Like, that makes sense to me. But from a storytelling standpoint, I'm like, I don't understand. All the boys look the same.
Ashley's only in it for the boys.
I'm only here for boys, and they're bad.
Here's the thing with Arina. There are elements to her story that are really good. She just can't execute them, and if she does, they're incredibly toxic. And they're seeped with toxic heteronormative culture. And it just frustrates you because there are elements of her work, like, for example, with Jeanne, the struggle with mental illness, Maron's family dynamics, and just families in general. And you're just like, wow, that's relatable. And then you get elements that come completely out of nowhere. Then you're just like, wait, what? I don't understand. And she just doesn't, until her later work, she doesn't spend enough time developing on character elements that she should, on plot developments that she should, and it just hits you right square in the face, and then all of a sudden it's over. The manga's over, and you're just like, well, that wasn't enough time to spend on anything.
It just wasn't enough time, Tanemura.
Yeah, I will say, as as a younger reader, I didn't need as much buildup. I think I had a much higher tolerance and maybe even enjoyed, like, oh, suddenly drama. But I think probably I also liked the ooh, angels bit. Like, that would have been a fun thing to think about and get into. Like, that, the aspects of that culture, like, what must have that have been like?
Yeah.
Yeah, but, like, I was 14 or something.
I guess that's the thing, is Arina Tanemura does actually, like, we're just like, oh yeah, she wrote Bible fan fiction. Like, she actually feels just like fan fiction to me. Like, the level, I don't know. Like, these are things.
Hey. Some fan fiction is really thoughtful and well done.
Hey.
I think we are making a very, like, blanket statement about fan fiction that you should know better than to say.
No, because peak fan fiction for me was when I was 14, and I also did this dumb nonsense.
So we're specifically talking about, like, teen fan fiction.
Yes, because in general, fan fiction should not be looked down upon, and people should be able to express their creativity. But when you're 14 and you're just like, I'm gonna have Noin Claude be in love with Joan of Arc because that would totally happen in my fan fiction, guys.
Right.
That's when you're just like, yeah, I can see how this appeals to teenagers. And I was definitely, when I was originally reading some of her stuff when I was 14 to 16 years old, you get sucked up in that, and you don't understand why it can be bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also when I was younger, I didn't realize that these behaviors from the guys, that especially that are striking me now as, like, massively violent,
Yeah.
they would have struck me as romantic back then.
Same. And here's the thing. I did hate Chiaki when I was 12, 13. I just didn't know why. But now that I'm an adult, I'm like, yeah, I know why now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's true. As an adult now, I'm like, oh, I hate all of these things in men. But also, actually, like, sometimes I'm like, I don't even think I hate them when they manifest in real life. Because, okay, as a goalie in ice hockey who plays mostly with dudes, I actually really like when they become possessive of me, because normally they're mean to me. Like, they'll be like, oh, we're on the same team, but, like, oh no, we have a girl on our team. But if they're going to protect me from other dudes who will be even meaner to me, I like when they do that. I'm like, that's nice. I feel
But that's just like, aw, that's so bad, though.
And Asher has lost respect for me.
Not for you, for your teammates.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'll come down and fight all of your teammates.
No,
then...
they're gonna be large and terrible, scary people.
It's okay. I know karate.
Yeah, okay.
I can fight.
Well, I'll put on pads and fight with pads on. So it's not. Is it even real punching then? It's like. No. It's fine. So, like, yeah, from that aspect, I get it. I'm very curious to one day just, like, read all of Tanemura's works in order of how she published them. Because, I mean, I feel like would normally be fascinating with most authors, because most authors have all these, like, a couple themes that they, like, are struggling with in their mind, and they put them over and over and over in their stories. And I would like to see the progression of Tanemura. Like, does it progress? Is it just always going to be, like, weird angels are always there, weird little familiars are there, falling in love with humans and whatever, and the boys are always bad, and, like, I hope not.
As someone who has read all of her works but one, but I know what happens in that one work, let me tell you.
It never gets better.
It gets worse.
It gets worse? No!
Wow.
Her peak is full moon. That is her peak.
That can't be.
Boy.
And that's not a very high peak.
No. No.
No, what's going on in Idle Dreams, man? What's going on?
Oh,
I don't want to know. I'm going to find out one day.
If you think her fantasy elements are weird, her realistic elements
are weirder.
Are not even based in reality. And then you think, wait, you mean the fantasy elements that I read before in John and Full Moon are actually more realistic?
Oh no.
Oh yes.
Oh no.
Oh yes.
Tanemura! What's going on? So fascinating. Such a fascinating.
Come join me on this carpet ride into a world of strange imagination.
Oh no.
No.
You can go on your Tanemura ride, Ashley. I will go do this with Clamp.
Yeah. No, Asher, you're my clamp buddy. I won't subject you to Tanemura. We'll find people are and find some other people who love Tanemura. It'll be good. So I guess we should acknowledge purity in a more direct way and what it actually did right. So 2 lines really stood out to me about purity, even though I don't think that the rest of the text holds up to them. But, good for saying them, Tanemura, I guess. So I guess the first one, when does the first one happen? I'm trying to remember context for these. I should write better notes.
That's when she was talking to Jeanne. Like actual Jeanne.
Yes. That's what I thought. Okay, so she goes back to the past. Somehow time travel happens, and it's like, that's fine. For like 2
that
chapters.
Is never explained.
That's never explained.
It's not.
It's the consequences of her potentially dying in the past are like pretty downplayed. Like changes that she made non-existent. I don't know. It's fine. But she tells. So Maron tells actual Jeanne d'Arc, being raped doesn't defile you. You'll always be pure if you remain noble at heart. If you can believe in a god you've never met, it should be easy for you to believe in yourself. And I was like, wow, that actually cut pretty deep.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
The second quote was towards the end. I guess more talking like after like Finn things have happened and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, and she's done some stuff with Chiaki, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, the sexy times with Chiaki have happened. And she says, even if a girl falls in love with someone other than God, she will always remain pure as long as she does not forget to be noble and proud. I was like, wow, Tanemura, you're really coming for the Christian, like, purity culture right here.
I mean, actually, that's in Japanese culture, too. Like, that's a Shinto thing of purity. Shrine maidens were always supposed to be virgins, and that's why they had to change them out all the time. Purity is a big, big, big thing in Shinto.
Excellent.
Yes. Not necessarily sexual purity, but, like, purity is a thing, for sure.
Yep.
Well, then Tanemura goes on to be like, what you need is to be pure of heart, and to be pure of heart, you need to love people. And I'm like, okay, that's nice. Where's all this noble, proud stuff coming from? Like, yeah, you got a sword, but like, I don't know, it wasn't supported by the text. That's fine. All right, whatever. Like,
there are things that happen in this story that don't match up at all with the text that comes from this.
Absolutely.
I'm also like, now I'm like, being raped doesn't defile you. I'm like, I want to take that as Tanemura like condemning rape. At the same time, I'm kind of like, but Tanemura loves being rapey, and it's kind of just like, no, the rape just doesn't make you bad. And I'm like, oh no.
It doesn't diminish your holiness.
Yeah, it doesn't diminish your holiness. Like, but like, overall, so the situation's fine. I'm like,
nah.
And just having premarital sex in general, besides rape, I think she's also saying you're not defiled because you didn't get married before you had sex.
Right. Sex is not a thing that defiles you.
Yeah.
I think is her main point with this.
Main
and
goal.
Yeah, great, good.
Great, good, yeah, excellent.
Still bad behavior on all those guys' parts.
Yep.
Don't make Maron feel like she needs to have sex. Stop being rapists.
Or be in a romantic relationship with a guy in general.
Yeah, that didn't need to happen. I give Chiaki some points for being a person who like helped her feel confident and secure in a way that wasn't her putting a false front on. But like the rest of his crap is crap.
Yeah, it doesn't come from a good place.
No.
Boo, Chiaki.
I'm so happy I can finally shout to the heavens how much I dislike Chiaki with you guys, because when I was growing up, a lot of people loved him. Chiaki
Really?
was a favorite among a lot of Arina fans, and I would be like, but why?
Yeah, no.
Why do you like this guy? He's a creep.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
now that I'm with you two, I'm just like, I can talk about how much I hate Chiaki all I want.
Yes, because he is a creep. Calm down.
a
Just
creep.
write cute notes. Don't be pushy.
Even the most harmless, supposedly guys are mad creepy. Minazuki, 3 years later in the epilogue, he's still obsessed with Maron, and I'm just like, no, Miyako, why are you putting up with this?
Pair the spares.
I mean, there's that, but even so, it's like it was like being set up from the start, and yet he does not still need to be in love with Maron, except for the part where I do enjoy that everyone loves Maron. She deserves all the love in the world. Stop being in love with her. Stop. Especially when being in love with her is creepy and weird.
So many creepy
So
and weirds.
You remember how you talked about how you were hoping that Arina in her later works would repeat elements? Well, let me tell you that something like that happens, but much, much worse in The Gentleman's Alliance.
Oh. I want it to get better. I want Arina to be like, oh, I see. Like, there are definitely authors who are like, oh, yes, I see that this might have been problematic. So, like, I want to keep the same themes, but do it better. And I'm like, does Tanemura ever get there? No? Oh, no.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
This is terrible. Why you gotta be like this, Tanemura? Oh, no. But yes, I think the purity thing became interesting when it was related to Finn being a fallen angel as well.
Yes.
And being tainted and burning access anytime she touched him because she's a demon, I guess.
She's not a demon. She still reeks of heaven.
Well, yes, she still reeks of heaven, but she's no good.
I guess you could compare her to, I know there's some parts of Christianity and Catholic religion that say that Lucifer is a fallen angel.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you could kind of compare her to Lucifer in that sense, where she's of heaven, but she's sinned, and she's a fallen angel, but she doesn't quite fit in with hell either.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's sort of, that's actually then going back to God's backstory.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
God's
like
fanfiction. Yes, tell me
yeah,
more.
like the Demon King also technically comes from heaven because he comes
Yes.
from God.
Because he is God.
Yeah, he's God's heart actually. So
He's the best part of God.
yeah, well, apparently not, but what do I know?
God's depression. He released his depression and anxiety and negative feelings, and that
He
became
just
the devil.
expelled those from his body and was like, you deal with it.
Definitely.
I guess
should've-
is that what the analogy "just be positive" means? I understand now. I get it.
Okay.
I finally get it.
Oh,
It all makes
boy.
sense.
Thanks, Tanemura.
Thanks, Tanemura.
Curing depression.
Just put it in a little ball and throw it out. Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Oh, goodness gracious. But yeah, so, like, Finn being... I felt super... I was telling Asher I felt super salty because before I was falling asleep, I hadn't finished reading, and I wrote random notes. I was like, the thing about purity is that it's, like, it's so garbage because you can never gain purity. Purity is usually your, like, default state that you try so hard to defend from all the temptations of the world, and that's very annoying and not proactive and like all these things. And then I was like, yeah, and you can never get purity back unless you like die, right? Like you're dead now, so you're in a pure state again. And then Finn became an angel again in the next chapter that I read, and I was like, I feel a little salty right now. Arina's like, no, purity is not what you think it is. So,
well, I'm just thinking now that like maybe Finn's problem wasn't purity. I want to think like, so yes, we know that holy power does rely in some part on purity because that's brought up in the Sagami backstory angel thing. Like it wouldn't have worked without a pure maiden frozen in the ice or whatever. Yep. However, I believe that holy power is not called purity, and the fact that Finn gets that power back from her angel friends loving her despite her hurting them means that holy power is perhaps something else. I would say it's love rather than purity. But yeah. I mean, she definitely Tanemura should have maybe explained that.
I don't think Tanemura is a strong enough writer to ever explain it.
Well,
she's just like, this is cool.
Yeah.
This is a cool story thing I can put in.
And I mean, I think that's really like powerful and sweet what those angels did for her.
Yeah.
And it was nullified like 2 pages later, 20 pages later. But,
of course.
I read fast.
Arina got to get to that ending somehow.
Yeah. Gotta sacrifice. All them sacrifices.
Oh, yes. Oh, man, that is actually... Sacrifice is a fun thing to talk about on this weekend of all weekends.
Oh, yeah!
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's gonna be so fun that this podcast comes out in, like, mid-May, but we recorded it. But we recorded it on the holiest of weekends. All around.
Man, if I had thought this through, I could have, put together, like, a 20-minute lecture on purity in sacrifice... in Jewish whatever, but like it's not really relevant to Jeanne.
No.
Nothing's really relevant to
Jeanne. I guess this didn't actually come up. Like, I went to rabbinical school.
Yeah, Asher went to rabbinical school for 3 years, so that's why I'm like, I am the least qualified person to talk about religion on this podcast.
I have lots to say about sacrifices, but
you don't want to say them?
They don't really relate to this.
They don't relate to Jeanne's. It feels like everything is related to Jeanne because, again, Maron is the reincarnation of Joan of Arc, and Joan of Arc is apparently Eve, and that's like a lot of things, and yet nothing is related to Jeanne.
Yeah, I mean, well, particularly on the Jewish side, like, the sacrifice stuff is more relevant to, not to Passover, but to Yom Kippur. Other end of the year, and actually not super relevant here, except in that there is a theory that purification in the temple worked through the sacrifices, not all the sacrifices, but particularly the Yom Kippur sacrifice stuff, by the temple itself absorbing all the sin from the people.
Yes, which is why on Yom Kippur, when you go to temple, you fast that day, and you're in temple for pretty much the entire day.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Fun is a word for it.
I've never participated in fasting, but my mom has, and her siblings have. So they've done that, but I've never personally fasted on Yom Kippur.
It's an experience. And... I think that I personally don't think that deprivation makes for like physical deprivation makes for purity. I especially don't like it in the context of suffering makes you holy.
Yep.
I think that's a very Christian thing and not very healthy. And I like that Jeanne doesn't really go there. Yes, Maron suffers a ton. But that's not where her strength comes from. It comes from love. It's not that she endures this because of love either. It's that she is strong because she loves. So I'm glad for that.
Same.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I forgot Asher's other favorite topic: suffering.
It goes hand in hand with the purity thing.
It does.
It does. Yeah. Because purity is suffering.
Yeah, it is.
Purity is just constant battles of suffering.
Well, again, I think maybe this comes from the pervasiveness of the Christian religion on our Western worldview. But, like, what does suffering do? I don't think it builds character, really.
Yeah,
I still
and
think it does.
It's getting up. No, it's getting up after.
I think there's a lot to say about Marin's character and how it relates to Christianity and what Christianity tells its followers. And Marin is saying, no, it doesn't have to be that way. It can come from love. Your strength can come from the love and support of other people. And just because you've had sex or you've been raped, that doesn't mean you're sinful or defiled anymore. So that part of Jeanne, I think, will always be appreciated.
I think it's also a much more sustainable strength than the strength she projected when she was alone and making herself someone she could try to admire.
Yes.
And that's a good lesson, is that, like, you know, you don't have to do it on your own, and you are, in fact, stronger personally for that. For not trying to make yourself stronger personally through telling yourself in the mirror every day, I am confident and strong and blah, 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 and I don't need anybody.
And that goes back to anxiety and depression culture as well. So finding strength in the people that love and care about you and support you really helps people who suffer from anxiety and depression to let them know, hey, just because your brain is telling you things doesn't make it true. And the love and support from other people who understand you and understand the struggles that you're going through goes such a long way.
Yeah, and that could have been made really powerful in the Finn scene, but I don't think we ever actually got the idea that Axis and the other angels really understood what Finn was going through, but they still supported her very strongly.
Yes,
Very
and
literally.
same with Maron and Finn, because Finn said to Maron, since Maron was struggling with her parents, she was like, okay, Maron, I'll be your mother. But we never really got to see the motherly relationship between Finn and Maron. That wasn't explored enough, I don't think.
The translation is actually different in ours. It was like, I'll be your family.
Interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, they in the CMX version it was specifically, I'll be your mom.
Huh.
Oh.
Definitely did not get that vibe.
No, yeah, Marin's definitely like, oh, yeah, like Finn was the only one who was there for me during all this time, and she was my only, like, considered her family and all these things.
I feel like Arina tried to push Maron and Chiaki's relationship so hard that things like Maron and Finn's relationship fell to the wayside, and I think that was way more important than Maron and Chiaki will ever be as a couple.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All Maron's like female relationships were much more important.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. No, we wrote down that we wanted to mention the side chapter between Miyako and Chiaki, and that was definitely one of the best chapters, just like,
Yeah.
hands down.
I thought of that when we were coming up with things to talk about, and I was like, I have to talk about it because it's one of my favorite chapters of that story. It's just so good. And Miyako, so the side chapter is in volume 2. I'm not sure if it's volume 2 in the Viz version.
Who knows? Who knows?
But
Fair.
the side chapter basically explains for all you listeners out there that why Miyako is trying so hard to capture Jeanne, and the reason is her high school classmates were like, hey, Jeanne looks just like Maron, doesn't she? And Miyako in her throughout her life was falsely accused of things, and that stuck with her, and Maron was the only one who defended her. So Miyako's like, okay, now it's my turn to do the same for Maron. And she was like, I'm going to prove to the world that Jeanne and Maron are not the same person. And that just rips you apart because we all know, the reader knows that's not true.
And then Miyako eventually later claims that she always knew that wasn't true, and I'm like, did you? Okay. But the most impactful part of that chapter for me actually was that when Miyako is being falsely accused, like Maron overhears people talking about that or whatever. And Maron's like, no, Miyako would never do those things in a malicious way. And then they're like, then why did Maron do these things? And then she's like, oh, well, blatantly because, like, this was the reason. Like, they're like, why did she touch my skirt or whatever? And Maron's like, oh, because your skirt was, like, tucked into your underwear. So, your underwear was showing or whatever. So she was trying to fix it. And they're like, oh. And it was just nice to be like, oh, yes, Maron either saw the situation from a different perspective or also always gives Miyako the benefit of the doubt and will be like, no, she clearly has good intentions. Like, she wouldn't just be like a weird creeper like Chiaki. Take a little dig there. Sure. And so it was just nice to be like, oh, yes, people who see others from a different perspective, giving them the benefit of the doubt and like having faith that they're being good is a thing that touches me. Because trusting in others is it's a hard thing.
It is, and Miyako and Marin's relationship is built on that trust. I mean, before Chiaki ever found out about Marin's family situation, Miyako was the only one who knew. And even though Miyako had a crush on Chiaki, when Chiaki would be like, so why is Marin waiting for letters in her mailbox every day? Miyako would actively shut him down and avoid talking about it because she was trying to protect Marin. And then Minazuki in chapter 13 was like, who's more important to you, Chiaki or Marin? And Miyako's like, isn't it obvious? And I'm like, it's obvious to me.
It's certainly obvious. Miyako is much better at protecting Maron than Chiaki is. Also, like,
oh my goodness,
off.
yes.
Oh no, their dynamic is really good. It's the best part.
It's one of my favorite relationships. And I honestly, as an adult now, I know we'll talk about shipping later, but I'll just say it now. I ship them as an adult.
Nice.
No, I definitely had some shippy vibes.
I was like, I don't know that I ship it, but they're way better for each other than they are with these guys. Just like,
right?
Oof. Why can't they just be like happy roommates together and like go on dates with people that are not these boys?
Yeah.
Right? This is the ending I want, but it's not the ending I got.
Yeah. Well, fanfiction can fix it.
Fanfiction can
Truth.
fix it. Okay, we should do shipping corner. So shipping corner, obviously, Miyako and Maron.
Definitely
OTP.
the strongest relationship in this entire thing.
It is now my OTP.
OTP.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Don't get me wrong.
It's the most healthy.
Yeah.
And if Arina understood what a gay relationship was back then, and also if she understood what kind of vibes Miyako was giving off, maybe, just maybe. But at the same time, when I was a kid, I never shipped Marin with anyone.
Nice.
I was in the camp that Marin didn't need to belong to anyone, neither did Miyako. So screw all of these hetero relationships.
Absolutely. Also, like, but I mean, I like that everybody loves her because she deserves all the love, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Marin needs a positive
Absolutely
relationship in her life, and at least Marin and Miyako is that. I just wish that Arina spent more time on it instead of Marin and Chiaki.
Absolutely. You know how Miyako is probably like the pushiest character in the series? She never pushes Maron more than verbally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She never pushes Maron in like going too far ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, boys suck.
Boys suck. Boo.
Boo all the boys.
Except Access. I'll keep him.
Make him better. But
Make him better, yeah. I think he can be made better. That's fine.
There's room for improvement.
Yeah. So obviously we hate Minazuki and Maron.
Yeah.
Their friendship was okay, but other than that, it all goes back to toxic hetero
Mm-hmm.
culture with that,
Yeah.
because their solution is I must force myself on this woman and then she'll like me.
Yeah.
I mean, all of their
Minazuki-
relationships are like that.
Yeah.
I liked when Minazuki was just like, I like you. And then Maron gently let him down. I was like, that is great. That's, can we like save this, put it in a frame?
Yeah.
And at that moment and at that time, he gracefully bowed out,
Yeah.
which was fantastic. I just wish that stuck.
Right.
Yeah, Minazuki's also a tough character because like he did have like he is the first one or one of the first ones to be possessed by a demon, and then he seemingly retains some of the things that he learned to be more like pushy and aggressive from the demon, because they're like, oh yes, we can't like these beta males over here or whatever. So
I don't know if that's more of a demon problem and more of a I'm best friends with Chiaki problem, and that's how he presents himself as a male. Because yeah, the demon did have influence, but after that, he was best friends with Chiaki, and he thought that Chiaki was a positive male role model.
Yeah, that was his first mistake.
First mistake. Trusting Chiaki.
Never trust him.
No.
Never. So I guess maybe we should talk about that, right?
About how much we hate Chiaki.
Well,
Yeah.
Chiaki and Miyako is the next ship I had written down.
No.
Obviously.
Bad on all
Boo!
counts.
Boo!
Chiaki doesn't
okay.
like her that way.
So, Ashley, I know you wanted to talk about that Valentine's Day chapter
God!
where Miyako makes a chocolate version of herself, and
God.
she's like, "Please eat me, Chiaki."
She literally gives him a chocolate version of herself and then says, eat me. And I'm like, no, stop. Hell no. Hell no. Just like yelled at that page for like a minute, being like, what is this garbage?
That
What?
absolutely happened. I was there.
Hot garbage.
I
but
saw
the
the tweet.
dedication. Dang.
I saw the tweet, and I was just like, ha 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 ha. I just couldn't help but laugh, because I was just like, that's Arina.
That's
That's
Arina for
Arina
you.
Tanemura.
Okay, obviously this relationship is bad because Chiaki like has not only doesn't like Miyako that way, but I think has like no respect for being like nice to her feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What actually annoys me more is that she likes him at all. Like, Miyako, you can do better.
Yeah.
You don't need this crummy boy.
Well, I mean, she can't really, because none of the boys are any good at all.
And then she ends up with Minazuki anyway.
Yeah, that sucks. And then, like, she's a housewife.
I know.
Like, she had dreams. I know she was only doing the detective thing to protect Maron, but, like, no.
She had hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
And I'll just say this, there's nothing wrong with being a housewife, but for a career-oriented woman like Miyako who wanted to be a detective even outside of Jeanne,
Right.
and then she's a housewife, it's just
Right.
falling back on...
Didn't he become a detective?
No, he became some sort of business person.
Oh, okay.
Minazuki became a businessman,
Oh.
Yeah.
but
Okay.
it falls back on women belong in the home and they should be rearing their families, and that's where the woman belongs. And,
Yeah. See previous podcasts for being a housewife is okay about everyone's getting married. But in this series, no, it doesn't work for
No,
Miyako.
it's bad. It's
This
bad.
BS.
Both of those
Very
girls were very active, very, like, go out, do things. If this is what they want, I can see Maron wanting this because, like, oh, what she wanted all along was her family.
Yeah.
But, like, come on, be nice to Miyako. Let her go do things.
Yeah.
And, like, we never really got to see if Maron had any career aspirations. I think the closest thing she would have had was being a gymnast. I would have loved her to be a professional gymnast.
gymnast.
But other than that, we never got to explore that. And it was just, hey, both of these strong, capable women are just housewives.
Right?
Ugh. Okay, here's a funny ship. Kagura and Yashiro.
I'm okay with that one.
You're all right with that one? That one's fine.
That one's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right.
It's a little creepy, right? I mean, it's Tanemura, so yes. But like,
I'm just wondering how old Kagura
yeah,
is
because how old
supposed
is
to
Kagura?
be.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But then I feel like that's balanced, off balanced a little by the fact that she comes from such a more moneyed family than he does.
Yeah.
So like, I could see it working out. I'm actually glad Tanemura didn't really address it because now I can just go in my head the way I want it to.
Okay, yeah. To jolt everybody's memory, Kagura is the butler boy person.
He's
What is he?
Chiaki's
He's just like a
dad's. I'm not sure if he's a servant or like the assistant director at the hospital or something.
he's
So
like that.
so he's the butler for the family home, but he's also Chiaki's dad's assistant in the hospital.
Oh, that's terrible.
No, that's a terrible life.
2 jobs, both of them awful.
I mean, it's Chiaki's family, and especially, oh my goodness, talk about where toxicity breeds. Chiaki's dad.
Yeah,
Oh,
what is he
good Lord.
doing?
So
Nothing good.
So I know we're going to deviate from shipping a bit, but let's talk about how Chiaki's dad, when possessed by a demon, kidnaps people, drugs them into a state of comatose, and they're in glass cases, and he has a dungeon, and he never gets arrested.
Yeah, like the police were there. They saw it.
They're like, this is fine. They're back now.
Are we not gonna press charges against him?
No, the question was, is he gonna press charges against Jeanne?
And then stemming from that, the reason why Chiaki's dad divorces so many times is he's looking for a mother for Chiaki because Chiaki's mother died of an illness when he was little, and ever since then he was trying to find the perfect mom for Chiaki, and Chiaki's like, wow, this flatters me, and I'm just like,
no.
Why?
Yeah, no, let's just not go there.
Let's not do that. That's weird. That's just weird.
It's bad. It's bad.
And he's supposed to be played up as this playful, funny character who plays pranks on people, and I'm just like, go away. You're a terrible father. Get out of here.
He's a terrible person.
Yeah.
Terrible person, terrible father, garbage, everything, go away.
Yes.
Let's have Kagura raise Chiaki instead.
Yeah, that'd be great. You had the perfect mother right next to you all along,
I know,
Chiaki's dad.
Okay, and then Yashiro is Chiaki's
Fiance.
previous fiance for
Yeah.
whatever reason that was happening.
Talk about plot points that are brought up and then
don't
dropped
matter.
and it doesn't even matter anymore.
It's super.
You know what could have
did
been
not matter.
interesting then? Yashiro and Minazuki, because they were both rejected by the people they wanted.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like literally the same scene. Same thing went down.
You could pair the spares that way.
Yeah.
Ooh. All right, I dig it.
And that would leave Kagura and
Miyako.
Miyako if we're still pairing the spares.
Yeah, no, I would like that actually. I'm down.
They've
Okay.
never interacted, but I'm down.
That's fine.
I'm down. Hey, I'd rather that than what happened.
Yeah, right? I'm into it.
I'm into it. All right, that's great. I'm glad we fixed this first 3 pairings right here.
We did it, guys.
We did it. We
did
solved Jeanne. Okay, then we have Noin and Jeanne.
No.
Nope.
Ugh.
Nope. Not in any way. Not 500 years ago. Not now.
Get
No.
that fan fiction romance out of my face.
Yeah.
And in the end, my everlasting feeling about Noin is like, why were you here?
He was not necessary.
It was super
It's true.
unnecessary.
He added nothing to the story except to be a creepy rapist.
Yep.
I know.
You can replace everything that happened with him and have Finn's betrayal happen much earlier and then flesh that out.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Have that a way better relationship between Finn and Maron. That would be
Yeah.
nice.
That'd be great.
And there's also that pairing Silk and Noin, because Silk's kind of gay
Well, yeah.
for
Silk is super
Noin.
gay. Yeah.
But that never really happens in
No.
the story
Super into
anyway.
it.
So
No.
it's a side chapter at the end of volume 7.
Yes.
So
The very end. But it was good. Then we have Finn and Access.
That's cute. That can stay.
That can
that
stay.
can stay.
That's allowed. Yay!
We just have to fix Access being like, oh, what you should have done after Maron was almost raped was hug her and hold her tight.
Yeah.
Make her feel better. Just like, no, Access, no.
No.
Nope.
Access.
But other than that, he's Finn and his relationship was super adorable.
Yep.
Yeah, they dug each other. They were relatively respectful of boundaries. It was good.
Relatively, yes.
Relatively.
Everything is relative.
Everything is relative here, all right? Let's be clear. The baseline is very low.
The bar is underground.
Yes, the bar is underground. We're in Tanemura land. All right? It's fine. Finn and Access is literally the only one on this list that is good, because then we have Chiaki and Maron, and we don't like Chiaki, so no.
I am ready to open that can that I've pent it up for so many years.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's bad.
And unfortunately, they're canon, and
right
to this day, Arina will still draw art of Chiaki forcing himself on Maron and anything romantic.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Gross.
Tanemura.
Gross.
Every time that Chiaki kisses Maron looks so uncomfortable.
Yeah. No, she literally only seems comfortable when she initiates the kiss, I think.
Yeah.
Even then, I think it seems a little forced. Miyako should just shove Chiaki out of the story.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Chiaki, his reaction to Maron almost getting raped by Noin in the very next chapter, at first, like in chapter 18, he's just like, he leaves the room because he doesn't know what to do with Maron being in that state. But then in the very next chapter, he sees a hickey on her neck. So what does Chiaki do?
I'll make you forget him. Yeah.
He forces himself on her. He gives her a hickey, and then he starts going on second base on her. And it's just like, she was almost raped yesterday.
I was like, bro, this is not the answer. This is not at all.
Nope.
And his reaction, in general, his reaction is to any contact with any other person with Maron is to be jealous and get all huffy, and then he gets what he wants. And I'm just like, how is this healthy? How is this a good relationship to have? And because Maron doesn't understand positive relationships, she thinks this is okay. And she just accepts it.
Yeah. It's bad.
Yeah, the Maron's work through of like almost being raped is definitely the most like tragic part of this manga for me. I'm like, no.
And again, this was in a magazine aimed at 8 to 14-year-old girls. So an 8-year-old reading this and being like, they are not going to understand necessarily. A typical 8-year-old, I should say, will not understand what's going on. And they won't understand why this is bad. And the fact that Chiaki's our main male lead just makes it even worse, too, that he constantly forces himself on Maron, and he wants to make her his only, and she can only look at him. She can't have any relationships with anyone else. That's an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And if written by a different person, Maron should leave it and never marry him.
Absolutely. She should never do anything with him. She should get a restraining order.
She should be like, we definitely don't live next to each other. We never see each other again.
Yeah.
And if Miyako wasn't so wrapped up in, for whatever reason, Chiaki, Miyako, I think, would be the one to be like, hey, Maron, Chiaki, he's doing things that are not appropriate, and as the daughter of a police officer,
right,
I'm going to step in and stop him.
Yeah.
As the daughter of a police officer, this is called sexual assault, and I'm going to
Yeah.
arrest him.
Yeah.
And Chiaki constantly sexually assaults Maron, and Maron sees it as just, oh, he loves me.
He's so
But I
manly.
can't tell him I love him because he betrayed me earlier. Well, he's betraying you right now by forcing himself
Yeah.
on
This
your
is
mouth
still a betrayal.
and your neck and going second base on you.
Yeah.
So and then they eventually have sex in heaven.
Yeah, she was
Oh
crying.
yeah, they were in heaven.
They were in heaven. She was crying. I am not. No.
Not about that on any level.
No. No, I'm okay with them having sex in heaven. I think that's great.
You're like, that's awesome.
Yeah. The concept of that and being like, oh, these are two people in love and they're having sex in a holy place and they're still holy because of it.
Yes.
That part, that's okay.
That's
But
fine.
because it's Chiaki and
Yeah.
he's a gross, disgusting, abusive pervert,
Absolutely.
That's the
that
bad
is not
part.
okay.
Nope.
He shouldn't. He doesn't deserve sex in heaven. Yeah.
Correct.
No, he does not.
This is a great note to end on.
Oh, I have one more thing to say about Shipping Corner, and
Okay.
it's actually about Finn. I like that she like sort of went back for the Demon Lord even after she became a full angel and whatever. She was like, I can't leave him alone, and it's like I actually really respect that.
Yeah, me too.
I think, especially knowing and thinking about the Demon Lord as like God's heart and feelings, it's like what I really would have wanted was for the conclusion of this to be a reintegration of God and God's heart. Like that should have been the goal.
Yeah.
I think. And I think it would have been great if Finn was the one who brought that together.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not forgiving the Demon Lord for like deciding I am going to torture this child so that I get all God's power. But like, I think it would have been fascinating if one or the other did get all the other's power and like absorbed them, and then the end result of that was actually to become a whole being. I think that's actually in line with all of the themes of Kamikaze Kaito Jeanne.
Yeah.
And like, why didn't that happen? Anyway, I will rewrite this.
Yes. Get back to
No,
us with your rewrite of Jeanne. All right.
Please,
Oh,
please.
Before we stop Shipping Corner, there's also another ship we should talk about, even though it's kind of quick and probably unimportant, is Zen and Maron.
Oh.
Because Zen plays a huge part in the turning point of
that could have
Jeanne.
been really cute. No. Oh, dang.
Yeah. So Zen his arc takes place in chapters 14 and 15, and he is a boy with heart disease, and the only thing keeping him alive is a demon. And his parents, hey, thanks to capitalism, his parents have to constantly work and they can't see his son because they have to save up for this expensive surgery. So thanks, capitalism, you're ruining families once again.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, of course, Zen feels neglected because of this, but not because his parents are terrible people, but because they're working so hard so that Zen can have his surgery and get a second chance at life. And Marin's like, hey, I understand where you're coming from and why you feel this way. Let's go see your parents and let's punch them. And because Zen is so far gone from this demon, he can actually see Finn.
Yeah.
And so, because of Marin's kindness, he starts to fall in love with her. And that relationship...
I forgot he did.
He actually like confesses to her.
Yeah. And in his dying breath, he confesses his love to Marin because he saw her for who she really was.
Yeah. Oh, dang. That would have been so much better.
And he's 2 years younger than her, so...
I'm also into that. I'm not into, like, the fact that he's a middle schooler, but, like, yes.
Yeah, that relationship actually would have been good, too.
That would have been great. He would have been an excellent sidekick.
So, Finn, that's where the whole explanation of God, what he does, comes from, is creating souls, protecting those souls, and moving and breathing the wind and moving the wind on Earth. So when Maron calls out to God after a failed attempt of seeing Zen's mother, God answers her by blowing the wind, and Zen's like, wow, God is real. This is cool. Wasn't that amazing, Maron? And Maron is so moved that she cries. And that moment was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe this is probably the story that Asher was like, there is one story that will make you feel things. I assume it was this.
Yep.
Did you feel things?
I felt things, but after Tokyo Babylon, like, come on.
Right. Right. Okay. Fair. Yeah.
But yeah, no, Zen is a cute boy. I'm glad he was starting his angel training or something in a bonus chapter. Yes.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Well, at the end, in the epilogue, I believe.
Yes. Oh, yes, it was in the epilogue. The epilogue proper.
He deserves nice things.
He deserves nice things. Yes, he's a good boy, unlike Chiaki.
I think also on that note, we should talk about how Finn and Axis reincarnated.
Oh, yeah. I kept I'm like, do I have to put them in here?
I think we should. I think we have to talk about it. We should.
All right. I mean, it's still okay, I guess.
It's not the best in the reincarnated states.
No.
I feel it was better when they were just Finn and Axis. So they reincarnate as... So Shinji is
Miyako's son.
Yeah, and Minazuki's son. And Natsuki is Chiaki and Maron's daughter.
What a big coincidence.
What a big coincidence, yeah. That's how this works. God loves them all. So then Shinji is Axis and Natsuki is Finn, but Natsuki as Finn doesn't really remember that she's Finn, whereas Shinji as Axis seems to be more with it. And to be fair, Shinji is older by like 4 years.
And that's actually what makes it weird in a lot of ways.
I have to ask, in the Viz version, there was I'm not sure if it's in the Viz version, but in later editions of publishing for Jeanne in Japan, there was a extra where Natsuki and Shinji were older. They were teenagers. And
yes.
Oh, yeah, it was in this.
It was in there.
And I love how Shinji remembers how toxic Chiaki is because he forces himself on Natsuki.
Yeah. I'm like, why did you have to go and ruin Access? So annoying.
I see you remember how Chiaki used to force himself on Maron, so I thought you figured just forcing yourself on Natsuki was totally okay, Shinji.
Yeah, well then there was actually another little, not even a full chapter, but there was a second chapter
it was like
of that.
Reprise.
Yeah.
Oh wait, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
so should I not spoil it?
This is not
then?
in the. No, do, because this is not in the CMX version. I've never been able to read it.
Okay.
So, please.
What happens is that they're already together, basically, because they remembered who each other are. But then Natsuki is like, well, now he's never, like, touching me or whatever. And he was like, I didn't want to, like, force this relationship on you because you are not Finn. You are Natsuki, and I'm Shinji. And then she was like, no, I want to make out, basically.
Let's make out.
Basically. But he was forcing himself on her.
Yes.
Before.
Right.
What?
Well, I don't know, but that chapter was in the past. This is Tanemura. Things that happened a chapter ago are no longer relevant.
No longer relevant.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Why?
Anyway, I don't know. The art in those extra chapters really weirded me out.
Yeah, well, because it was more advanced Tanemura. At least the second one.
The eyes were too big.
Yeah, she goes through a period during the Gentleman's Alliance where her eyes were super huge, and I think the artwork, at least for one of those extras where they first find out about their reincarnations, is from that era of art style.
It was really weird.
But her current art style, her eyes are actually smaller.
They're not that weird and crazy. And she is the character designer for Idolish 7, and you're like, wait, but these don't look like typical Tanemura characters. Like, their eyes aren't crazy.
You can tell them apart?
Yeah, what? This is weird. That was basically my thought learning that Arina Tanemura was the character designer for Idolish 7. I was like, what? That doesn't line up in my mind.
Yeah, after Sakura Himekaden, or the Legend of Princess Sakura in the Viz translation, she stopped being a mangaka with Ribbon, and she just became a freelance illustrator. Fun fact. So,
She's living her
I
best
see.
life.
yeah, I guess so.
She's exploring some new things out here. That's fine.
Like Idle Dreams and Idolish 7.
Things with idols.
She loves idols,
she
which
loves
is
them
why
idols.
Full Moon initially came about.
Yeah. All right. So, do we have any other final thoughts?
I feel like Jeanne could have been so much more, but there are so many problematic things that are holding it back that it just, I'm honestly, after rereading it for the podcast, I'm just so tired. It made me so tired. And I used to love Arina. I used to love and idolize her and look up to her, but I'm just so tired now.
We've made somebody hate Tanemura. Oh no.
Oh no. No, I think
It's not your fault.
Tanemura's fault.
Tanemura's fault.
It is.
Yeah. No, I think it's also a sign of how far we have come as a society, that we recognize these things now not as romantic or desirable or okay, but as problematic and as deeply hurtful. And I look forward to the new generation of shoujo manga and of the stories that we're going to write now that we are adults.
Yay! Yeah. Thanks for listening to Shojo Tell. Comments, questions, or concerns? Need to gush about your OTP? Tell us how much you hate Chiaki? Email shoujoandtell@gmail.com or leave a comment on shoujoandtell.com/phantomthiefjeanne. Jeanne. We're at Shojo Tell on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. Laura, where can people find you and your work on the internet?
Okay, so you can find me on Twitter at lspicerart. I post my art, and I also geek out about things that I like on there. You can also find me on Instagram at lauspicer, where, again, I post my art, but I also post anime I'm watching, or my cat, or my parents' dogs, or the food that I make. And the last place you can find me is on Tumblr. You can find me on my art Tumblr at Spicer Art, and you can find me on my personal Tumblr at Chick with 2 C's Spice.
Cool. And Asher, can people find you on the internet?
Rarely.
They
I guess
have to go into the
if you
undergrounds of Plurk.
No, because I will not follow you back on Plurk. Yeah, I think still, I mean, I have a Tumblr. It's mostly reblogs of Final Fantasy 15 right now, and will be for the foreseeable future.
And has
That
been
is,
for most of that.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, it's Asher Dashery on Tumblr. And then I do also have an archive of our own account, which is Dashery. And I post my fanfiction there. Right now, it's going to be lots of Final Fantasy 15. But there's a lot of Homestuck on there, too, if you like Homestuck.
Oh god, Asher's Homestuck phase. Ugh.
It never really ended.
It's never ended, oh no. Okay, you're excellent.
I still like it. I still think it was good.
I never got
And-
into Homestuck.
You're probably safer that way.
It's probably safer that way, that's what I've learned. Are you excited every time you see a new episode from us? If so, please consider leaving a rating in iTunes or Stitcher. This will help the podcast reach more hearts, or at least ears. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next time for the first half of this little-known series called, I think it's Ouran High School Host Club by Bisco Hattori. And if not that, then maybe our first shonen exception. Ooh, exciting stuff, which would be, I don't know, a silent voice. Nobody's heard of those things. Nobody.
Nope, not me.
Nope.
Off the radar, for sure.
Oh,
Very
definitely
hipster.
underground. Wake up sleeping beauty levels of things, right? Alright, JK, it's gonna be big stuff. Just prepare yourselves. I have to prepare myself. God, alright.
I'm so ready. I'm so
Everybody's ready.
to
Everybody's
listen.
pumped.
I am. I actually legitimately am so excited that you're talking about both of those, because I love both of them.
Yes, so many people love those and so much pressure.
You can do it.
I can do it. All right,
believe in
me
you.
and some other people. Until then, bye.
Bye.
Bye.